Ted, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Of course, of course. All right, so I'm really excited to talk to you. I got recommended for you from Dom, another amazing guest that he sent my way. So shout out to Dom D'Agostino. He's the man. We love him.
Dom's a fantastic guy.
Yeah, shout out to Dom. He's amazing. For people that don't know who you are, though, are not familiar with your work, tell people a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and then we can go from there.
All right. Just so there's no background clutter, I have 60 seconds of my background. So I was a college graduate at 18. I was a doctor of medicine at 22. At 25, I was faculty of pharmacology and toxicology, interventional neuroradiology, and neurology. At 28, I was a professor of medical informatics. My research was in neural networks, artificial intelligence systems. 30, I became a consultant for multi-billion-dollar investment funds. I assume they like my resume. And then I started my own company, which produced the first commercial wireless groupware. And then when I was 40, I started trading currencies on using predictive time series and artificial intelligence. And then a friend of mine who founded the whole movement on social responsible investing said I was playing a zero-sum game, challenged me. So I went to Paris and actually did another board certification, both in anti-aging medicine and nutritional medicine. When I came back, I saw the biohacking movement going, and I was actually frustrated by the lack of framework that was in there. So I started a clinical framework called Health Optimization Medicine and Practice, or HOME. Health Optimization Medicine is for physicians, and Health Optimization Practice, or HOPE, is for non-physician healthcare practitioners. It's about basically being able to optimize health and not diagnose and treat disease, which are two different parts of the spectrum, right? And then in order to that's now basically a nonprofit, an educational nonprofit that teaches healthcare professionals on how to do health optimization properly through clinical metabolomics. And then that is being supported by a company that I started. It's a for-profit company called Smarter Not Harder, better known with our brand Troches, which is prescriptions, or it's prescriptions but with a TRO. And they were initially formulated for, these products were initially formulated for me. The first one was actually to deal with my jet lag. And then the other products are actually requests, from people who actually like the product. And then the other one that was basically making a good transition into the clinics from the general public is something for anxiety. Right. And I've been joked by my investor friends that first you create an Adderall alternative, and now you're creating a Valium alternative. It's like, well, I said, I'll take the compliment, but, what's driving this is really what the people need. So, when you do, Justin, when health optimization essentially is, the easiest way to understand it is if you take a look at how medicine progressed, right? First, we only had the tools to examine organs. So you now have specialties like neurology, cardiology, etc., because those were that was what the technology could afford at the time. But now we could already peer inside the cells and take a look at what the cells are doing. But we have gone so extreme that we have become so DNA centric. And I said, no, that doesn't actually. You cannot find mercury toxicity in the DNA. You can find that in the metabolites of the cell. So, I basically metabolomics is actually already 50 years old. It's now just reaching the clinics, and it's been designated as the stethoscope of our century. right?
Nice.
And this is the medicine of our children, our children's children. And I'm trying to just introduce this today to the clinics so that there is an actual objective measure of wellness, right? And so what I do is simply balance your metabolites, meaning these are molecules that are the products or those that actually are involved in the interactions within the cell. And there is we don't look at values singly. We have to take a look at ratios of things, like, for example, omega-3 and omega-6. You cannot just give testosterone to a person. You have to take a look at all the other major hormones that are in play. So in other words, this is a network system. So when you touch one node in a network, everything moves. So that's the art of it. But at least now you have an objective measure of wellness, right? So you cannot say, oh, I'm doing this by feel. You can't, right? Because you cannot say, the clinical diagnosis now has gone to the level of the metabolites, and those you cannot see, right? You cannot see you cannot see whether, you can see jaundice, but you cannot see what's happening to your metabolites. So That's the whole point of this. And I was also getting frustrated, Justin, because, the people would ask, Dr. Ted, is vitamin E good for me? Is this good for me? It's like, guys, we already have the tools to measure all of those. If you don't need vitamin C, don't take vitamin C. If you don't, if you don't need any of this stuff, then don't take it, right? Because the values that we optimize to, if people know the definition of optimization, which is your thing, right? Human optimization is that we optimize to the values that you had between 21 and 30, which is considered your golden period, right?
Oh shit, I'm almost done.
In your life. Well, testosterone begins to drop at age 30, so initially, in fact, my youngest patients were 30. So
what do you think about this, though? I feel that, yes, they do drop naturally. You can do other stuff, like you could take like Tunga leaf, Agogia agressus. You can ice your testicles. I've been icing my testicles lately, and I've seen a huge improvement in my blood work. You can do other stuff, but ultimately, life is what it is, right? As you get older, you get weaker.
No, but what's your framework in doing this, right? What's the basis for icing your testicles? What's the basis for shining infrared light? What's the basis for all, in what order are you going to do all these things, and how sure are what can you show in terms of your test results that you're actually making some progress, right? There's some subjective component to it, but surely there has to be an objective component to say, well, I've moved from this to the place to this place. In fact, it's very telling in my practice, because I practice in Asia and Europe and here in the United States. And essentially, I have husbands who come to me who say, I'm only here because of my wife, right? And so I balance both hormones, nutrients, cofactors, etc. And I said, I just want you to give me testosterone. As well, I can't. If you want someone to give you testosterone, just go to someone else who will give you. But here, I will touch everything from your melatonin to your growth hormone to your thyroid to your thymosin to your insulin, to your adrenal glands and your gonads. So I will touch all of those. And in addition, I will have to take a look at your subtle toxicities and borderline deficiencies. There are many cases that are manifesting as, fatigue, et cetera, and we ignore them, or we just over caffeinate them, and you're seeing actually that there is already subtle mercury toxicity going on, right? And it's also interesting that there was an 80,000 subject study that was done in Europe on men 21 to 30 years old, and they saw that a massive drop in testosterone levels from, endocrine disruptors. Right? These are like your plastics, microplastics, and toxins. Yeah. So, and then the men come after about 6 months or 9 months and say, Dr. Ted, I thought I was okay before, but I never thought it was possible to feel this way. I said, now that you know what the feeling of wellness is, I said, since my goal of your coming here is to get you addicted to the feeling of wellness, so that when you get off kilter, right, you know what it is to be off kilter.
Life sucks. Right? Life sucks when you're not optimal.
So So, but it takes, it takes about 3, 6, 9 months before you get any effects. The reason they asked me, it's like, I want it overnight. I said, look,
Yeah.
it took you 40 years to get to this state.
Well,
Right? What do you expect to happen?
Just in general, though, like even if you just do steroids, if you're taking steroids, androgens move super slow. It takes months for androgens to start, regulating and kicking in. Which is good and bad, because once they do kick in after a couple months, they stay for a long time too. So like once you get off steroids, it takes a while for, your androgens to downregulate. What's crazy though with the icing of the testicles is we actually have guys that have been doing steroids for 10, 15 years. And after icing with a little bit of HCG and a little bit of a PCT, they've been able to get their total test up to 900.
Yeah, it's Justin, that's very age dependent though, right? Yeah. Because here's how I got into steroids and creating steroid stocks and stacks for bodybuilders and a few of the film stars around.
Well, real quick, Ted, where are you from originally?
I was originally from the Philippines.
Yeah, so. The Philippines and then Thailand, it's super easy to get steroids. You could just walk into a pharmacy and just pick up Tyranobol.
But the thing, this is how I got into it, is that I was asked by a 22-year-old who wanted to get married and have kids, right?
Yeah.
And he had gone to many physicians and no one would help him, right? And I was like totally although I know pharmacology, I really didn't know what the bodybuilders, etc. So that set me on like this journey of like trying to find out. And it's like, if we are unable to guide them to doing this to themselves, can we at least be able to help them when they come to you for help when they want to do this? It took me 4 years to actually set this guy to actually good levels and regrew his testicles and so on. But it takes, as you said, it takes a while. But he was very happy with it. But for me, it's like, shame on us, right, as physicians, for not even knowing, how to be able to help these people. That's what we should be doing, right? Yeah. And these are the things, Justin, that in health optimization, it takes a while, right? It's a long period, but there are problems that needs to be immediately addressed. For example, sleeplessness or, anxiety, pain, just wanting some immediate cognitive performance, and this cannot be addressed by balancing your hormones and nutrients right away. It takes a while. So there are real problems. So that's actually the one that's driving the products of prescriptions, right? What we make is actually to address all of those things that are need to be immediately addressed, right? Because if someone's anxious, you need immediate relief from that.
What is your Adderall alternative? You caught my attention there. People want. I know people that were listening wanted me to stop you, but I let you go. But we have to come back to that. So if you're blasting Adderall twice a day and you get a lot of work done, but it's not the healthiest thing to do, what would you recommend?
Man, I have tried Adderall and that shit works.
That shit definitely works.
That shit definitely works. And
it doesn't matter what's going on. It could be raining. There could be a tsunami. People are mad at you. If you take Adderall, everything is better.
Yeah, but the thing I dislike about Adderall is that there is no joy in checking your list, right? It's just like, okay, I'm done with that. And unlike when you're not on Adderall and you're finishing something and you go, yes, and you go on to your next task, right? So there's that feeling, that joy that you've completed something, which is absent in Adderall. But the Adderall substitute I was talking about is actually a product that I formulated. It's called blue carnitine. It's what's in the name, right? Blue is methylene blue. Yep. Ka is caffeine. Na is CBD, cannabidiol, and tin is nicotine. And I actually formulated it for myself as
Those
a
all
gum
work.
because, yeah, because before COVID, I was rarely in the same time zone for 2 weeks, right? So when people ask me my definition of heaven, I would say it's being in the same time zone for more than 2 weeks. But as soon as you land, you're seeing patients, you're talking to you're delivering lectures, you're talking to physicians, you're talking to important people in meetings and so on, and you have to be on, right? So I formulated this for myself as a gum. And my friends tried it and I said, "Oh my God, Ted, this really works. Why don't we make a product out of it?" And I said, "Okay." So I submitted the formula as a gum, and it turns out gum is confection, Justin. I didn't know this. So it has to be made by a confectioner. And the confectioner that I talked to who was willing to do it was in Rhode Island. Okay, we're ready, all set to do it. And then they pulled out the last minute and said, "No, we're not going to do your product." I said, "Why?" "Because it turns all of our equipment blue." So
methylene blue, yeah.
So I then reformulated it into a troche, which is basically, it's like a lozenge, but you put it between your upper cheek and gum. And I did that because it has to be closer to the circulatory system, right below the brain, right? And there are 8 layers of mucosa in there, so there's actually a controlled absorption. It's absorbed within 20 minutes. People were asking me why didn't I use more quick dissolving things, and the reason is that I really don't want it to dissolve quickly. You want it to diffuse to the base of your brain, right? So because it dissolves too quickly, you end up swallowing the whole. So
how does it taste? Because nicotine gum tastes terrible.
Yeah, it actually tastes good. It has some peppermint oil in there.
Does it have low amounts of nicotine? Because high amount, I've taken potent.
No, I'm a sissy when it comes to nicotine. 1 milligram will give me diarrhea.
Yeah.
One
time I took nicotine, I was throwing up and having diarrhea at the same time, and then passed out on the floor.
Yeah, but intense. But I am surprised at most people, they don't balk at 2 milligrams. They don't balk at 4 milligrams. And people were asking me, it's like, how can you put this in your product? I said, it's only 1 milligram and the product is actually scored, right? You can cut it into quarters, so you can only get like 0.25 milligrams of nicotine at a time. Whereas you could buy 400 pieces of 4 milligrams of nicotine at a drugstore.
For sure. And you get all those like chemicals and all the bullshit that they're throwing in there that you have no idea. It's not pure nicotine. Can you buy this? Is this legal to buy in the United States? People can buy it in the United States?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. You're gonna have to give me a link after this show. I want to try it.
Sure.
I've had a lot of people, right? So I'm not saying this is bullshit, right? But I've had a lot of scientists come on and be like, "Oh man, this stuff is amazing. It's an Adderall alternative." And let's be honest, it doesn't even come close to Adderall. So does it really, like, if you gave me this versus Adderall, would you know the difference?
You would know the difference. Okay. Yes, because I call this as more of a wide focus type.
Okay. Because I can't stand when people say that. Oh, this is better than Adderall. It's natural. They're always bullshit.
That's teasing by the investors, right? On how it should be pitched.
Yeah, but it's never, because then you get let down because you're expecting to feel like you just took Adderall and you feel better, but you don't feel Adderall level.
If you take one whole troche, which I don't recommend, then you'll feel that it's kind of like Adderall. So because I tell people to titrate it. You cut it into 4, try 1/4 first. Yep. If you don't feel anything the next time, do a half. For most people, a half will do it. So it's different. People here in the United States.
I'm going to look up the website. What's the website?
Transcriptions. Transcriptions.com. TROS. Yeah.
TROS.
Transcriptions.
Okay, got it.
But anyway, it has methylene blue in it, which is an electron donor to your mitochondria, right? And therefore it provides energy to your brain. That's why I said it gives you a wide focus, because normally I have to lecture, and in your lecture you need to focus on what you're saying, but at the same time you need to take a look at what your audience is responding to. So it allows you to do that shift back and forth.
So I have the website.
So
I have the website up right here. I just want to make sure. So people, when they go to the website and they want to buy this stuff, that they're picking the right product. So there's Just Blue, right?
Yes,
Is that
that's
what?
just blue. That's all methylene blue that was requested of us by the
Okay.
by customers. That's it's like, can we just have pure methylene blue? I call them the nicotine wusses, but actually many of them they I'm not saying this and I'm not recommending it, but there's a studies that are currently going on the use of methylene blue for both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Yeah, methylene blue is great.
So people were asking whether or not I could just make a pure methylene blue troche, and that's the genesis of Just Blue, right?
Gotcha.
And so we promote that just for mitochondrial optimization, right? As I said, we are careful to make no claims here.
No, for sure.
In terms of our products,
for sure.
yeah.
And then the one you're talking about, the nootropic is blue canine.
Blue carnitine, yes.
Carnitine, okay, gotcha. And then let's see. So it's $30, pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Cool. How fast does it ship? That's the game changer.
Yeah, it's overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I'm buying this stuff tonight. Cool. And then you got the Trocom. Let's see what's in this.
Yeah, Trocom is new.
Okay, GABA, Kava, yeah.
Yeah. Trocom is new. We essentially, the way I formulated this is I took a look at what are the direct agonists of the GABA receptor, right? And then what's a positive allosteric modulator, or the thing that actually makes if you take a look at it as a lock and key mechanism, there is a lock, which is the GABA receptor, and there's a positive allosteric modulator, which jiggers the lock in order to make the key fit better.
Perfect.
And so the positive allosteric modulator here is actually Kava. Right. And I'm actually using Kava crystals, right? I'm not using, as I said, as a trained in pharmacology and having worked with the FDA with a few companies in terms of this, I actually would like to know how many milligrams is going into your body and how exactly how many milligrams is effective for you. So, because you can cut our troches, what's an effective dose for you. Right. And so that's how, the N-nicotinoyl GABA is actually nothing more than GABA that is actually complexed with vitamin B3, right? And it's the B3, as you know, GABA doesn't pass through the blood-brain barrier. So you can just, as essentially B3 does, and it just pulls the GABA into the brain, and there it dissociates. That's why the dose is titrated, because too much of it, vitamin B3 is excitatory to the brain. So you have to just make sure that you take the right amount of it. Otherwise, instead of calming you down, it will excite you a little bit.
Right.
So I tell them not too much. Interestingly, Justin, in Florida, when we were handing this out, it was the moms who actually were coming back for more and more samples, because they said that, well, this thing is working, right? And I was asking them how they were using it, and it was very interesting. They were taking it an hour before sleep because they said it quieted down their thoughts. And that's one of the things that I didn't expect people to be doing, right? They needed to quiet down their thoughts. And because we're always on all the time, we seem to have forgotten about the GABA mechanisms.
I hate turning off. I hate turning off. Every time I go to sleep, I get a little depressed. I'm like, damn it, I got to go to sleep. Yeah. Does it affect your REM sleep or your sleep quality at all? Do you have any studies?
Actually, it from this I just we've not tested. Of course, we've not tested it in the lab. But this is just from people with giving us their feedback. They said that it actually promotes their deep sleep. So, but I am coming up with basically anti-sleeplessness troche. I cannot say anti-insomnia.
Like Provigil?
Anti-sleeplessness, basically anti-sleeplessness troche to make you sleep.
Oh, it's the opposite of Provigil.
And so it's the formulation is finished. It's just Justin, when you're working with plants and you're working with fungi, it is very difficult to source the materials, and it's very difficult to actually, especially with COVID and supply chain, it's very difficult to get them lined up. And so we're having some of the molecules synthesized actually out of the country in order to just get them here. They're not illegal. It's just that no one here, was actually willing to synthesize them because the extraction process is really very detailed and the yield is very low. So, and as I said, I'd rather use pure materials for this.
Right.
But so we also have something coming up for pain, right? And that will be using more of the kratom molecules in it. As you know, there's a lot of, you're interested in the business of it. Some payment gateways would not accept anything with kratom in it, and you need to have a second payment gateway. All of those things that have to be set ahead of time. Right. So here I am with an actual, business that's actually supporting the nonprofit that drives the products, and that's the reciprocity system that I actually am presenting to the world. It's possible to do good and make profit at the same time. Right.
Yeah, of course.
With something driving up your products because of need, and then you come back and you come up with actually kick-ass products that actually do well in the market.
Even if you did still take Adderall like once or twice a week, you save it, and then you do your gum every day, and then when you really want to like hammer down, you'd save like 1 or 2 days a week, and then that's when you would do Adderall.
If you can find, if you can use 1P LSD, or if you can find LSD, but one of my favorite hacks, actually for productivity is 10 micrograms of LSD, which is just a drop, right? And 1/4 or 1/2 tablet of selegiline. Selegiline is actually prevents the dopamine, the enzyme that degrades dopamine to degrade dopamine. And so that's my favorite hack. It keeps you focused. It doesn't have the epinephrine high of amphetamine, right? So
we love adrenaline, Ted. Come on. All those people like, oh yeah, natural. We love adrenaline. Like
when you're young, right? I'm lucky. I know, Justin, I don't keep my age a secret. I'm 60 years old, but wow. I must be doing something right here. Telomerically, by telomere age, I'm 32. By epigenetic age, I'm 22 and a half. So I think I kind of know what I'm doing, right? In terms of optimizing my health. So when I'm looking at this, if you, for example, do Provigil in Asia, right? I'm giving it to my Asian patients. You see a massive spike in their blood pressure, even if they have no high blood pressure. So I'm very careful about those. There are racial sensitivities to these kinds of things. Of course, you already know that, right? Asians can't hold their alcohol in general. As you see, they don't have the alcohol dehydrogenase as much as the Caucasians do. Right?
Asians are the best. So going out with Asians and drinking with Asians is the best. So much better than white people. Much better time, believe me.
I remember there were certain bars before where they would lose money if they had an Asian clientele because they don't drink. Because they can't drink too much, they get drunk so quickly. But that was really a funny observation that was made by the bar owner. But that's a story for another time.
Oh man, I love it. So okay, so let's say that you want it to be. So for me, right, my goal in life is to become Bradley Cooper and Limitless, right? Take NCT 48 and become super genius, shredded, just the ultimate guy, right? Speak multiple languages. I talk to all the top language learning experts in the world. Yes. I've had Gabriel Weiner on. for Fluent Forever. I've had Ollie Richards on for story learning, and these are like the top guys that they're polyglots. They speak multiple languages. This is what I'm into. I'm into human optimization, right? So if you were to concoct, obviously there's different legalities when you're talking about different pharmacology, but if you were to concoct like your like God mode list, what would that look like?
Well, I actually, in private, I have created a God mode kind of turkey.
No, nobody's listening, so
but it's not for sale. Right? it's just for me to use. But you'd be surprised, Justin, that it's actually a balance of the neurotransmitters in the brain. If you want an immediate effect, right? So for me, it goes in. If you have to do it systematically, if you want to get there, you have to do your brain health optimization first. For example, you have to know your vitamin B6 levels. You have to know all your vitamin B levels, because those are not only used by your neurons, they're also being used by all the other cells of your body. So in order to optimize your brain cells, you have first to optimize your body cells, right? Know the levels of vitamins, minerals, cofactors, hormones, etc. Balance those first. And then you'll see already a performance in your increased performance in your brain. You'll see, decreased fat in your body. When I work with clients, for example, I tell them, you want those. They want the abs, of course, Justin. That's the men usually just like two things. They want their boners and their abs. Yep. I tell them, 10% of body fat and below, your abs will show, right? But less than 5%, you begin to become depressed because the brain is mostly fat. So, you have to strike a balance among all of these things. So first, optimize your health. Go get your metabolite levels tested, and then make your basically get your subtle toxicities and borderline deficiencies addressed, right? And then after doing that, or adjusted to between 21 and 30 years old, and then after that, here we go again. And then after that, you then take a look at, okay, how do I now boost performance, right? Because there can be no performance optimization without prior health optimization. So you cannot talk about performance optimization unless you're fully health optimized. And now you can optimize performance. So how do I optimize performance? You overclock certain neurotransmitters, right? You said you wanted certain things in your brain. So you overclock certain neurotransmitters. But first, you have to begin, you take a look at what's my neurotransmitter balance like. I get, for example, athletes where the coaches are complaining to me that they cannot focus. And you take a look at their dopamine levels, or the metabolites of dopamine, which is homovanillic acid, right? It's very low. And I tell them it's not because of their family circumstance or anything like that. Those are contributing factors, but it's because take a look at the biology first. Biologically, they need to boost their dopamine, and you could do that many ways. You could provide mucuna pruriens, you could do all of these things. But if you want to go where I think you're going with this, it's like, well, you're already all of this, and you want to be
cool story. Come on, well, how do we get to God mode?
The top of it's like, no, I'm impatient. Let me get there, even just for 4 hours, right?
When I listen to a podcast and they're like, oh yeah, you got to get your vitamins right. It's like, oh my God, bro, it's the same shit. I understand. Yes, don't be unhealthy and stop eating McDonald's, right? But
take a look at your. So what you need to do is to take a look at your neurotransmitter balance if you want to get into a God mode. As I said, take a look at your dopamine serotonin balance, for example. A common problem among men going in andropause, for example, is that when men come to me and they're 40 years old, they're usually in some sort of antidepressant already,
right?
And the reason for that is andropause sneaks up on you, right? The testosterone levels go down slowly, whereas for females, menopause is actually basically sudden, right? There's perimenopause, but it gets it's sudden. So for men, they tend to be misdiagnosed and they're given antidepressants right away, whereas 3 months of hormone balancing will get them back, and you could pull out the antidepressant. But saying you've done all that, right, and you just want to get into this phase, then you overclock the neurotransmitter. So you have your dopamine and serotonin balance, for example, that you need to balance out.
Right.
As you know, the serotonin is your happy neurotransmitter, right? And or what they call your happy neurotransmitter, and your dopamine is your focus neurotransmitter, but in truth, or your flow neurotransmitter, but in truth, these are actually balance the brain. So externally, what they call the task positive network, or those that are responsible for flow, those are usually dopamine mediated, right? They're responsible for learning and reward, and for those that are responsible for rumination, etc., that's a default mode network. Most people who are depressed actually have a hyperactive default mode network in their brains, and that's actually, you can actually shut that off with by raising the serotonin levels of the circuit. See, I'm very biologically based. I don't look at external circumstances. I look at where is it in biology that we can do this, right? So that's one of the first balances you can do. The one that's actually heavily ignored, Justin, is the balance between your excitatory and your inhibitory neurotransmitters. Excitatory, of course, is glutaminergic, right? And inhibitory is your GABAergic system. And you think of it as basically the on and off switch of your brain. And the model that you can use is that, okay, you have an on and off switch of the brain, the excitatory, inhibitory, and then you take a look at the rest of the neurotransmitters as neuromodulators. They just modulate the function of your brain. And that's the way I look at it. I'm telling you my secret of looking at the brain and making a quick assessment.
That's crucial, though. It is the one part that stood out to me that was pretty crucial is that, like when people do Adderall or they do anything, any type of amphetamines or anything that boosts dopamine, like, L-Dopa, or even if they take a high potency of L-tyrosine, right? You feel good, obviously, after, but then it starts to wear down, right? But
yeah,
you said something that I've never heard before is you can take certain compounds that like literally blunt the breakdown of the dopamine that's in your brain, because most of the time you get blasted, but then it drops down, and then that's the shitty part. So if you could at least not stop, but slow down the breakdown, how do we do that?
Yeah, there are many ways that you could slow that down, right? And you know that dopamine is a monoamine, right? Is a monoamine. So what? The enzyme that breaks it down is monoamine oxidase. So you can take a look at compounds out there that can actually that can actually inhibit the enzyme, and so your dopamine enzyme levels go up. So there are natural inhibitors, as you know. For example, harmine or harmaline, which they use in ayahuasca ceremonies, right? Beta carbolines, etc. Those are not natural inhibitors. In fact, during ayahuasca journeys that people take, that's the reason why people vomit, right? When they didn't take the proper diet or dieta before it. It's because that's a liver inhibitor, right? And so you can by inhibiting the degradation, you basically raise the dopamine levels. But you will still, what will happen is that, if they're not careful about the spiking of dopamine in the brain, the receptors will still downregulate. But one of the more interesting studies that have come out is that if you use a natural one like mucuna pruriens, right, the receptors do not downregulate as much as it would if you use pure L-Dopa. So for my patients and for my clients, I call them clients because they're not sick, Justin. So for my clients, I actually tell them to take, for example, mucuna pruriens would be like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then, the rest of the days off, even just to be cautious about these things. Right. But make sure that you get tested for neurotransmitters first before getting all of this stuff. Right. Because you may not need it.
You like L-Dopa better than L-tyrosine? Because I know L-tyrosine gets converted.
That depends. I'm very age sensitive. Okay. Because it's an ageist world out there. there are conferences that I'm not allowed to speak anymore because I'm no longer 40 years old. So this is how it is. My attitude is like, I actually hate all of these magazine articles. Like, these are the best exercises for you. I said, for what age? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're using like phenylalanine or tyrosine or the precursors of the dopamine molecule, it's not only dopamine, right? It's also a precursor to your thyroid hormones, for example. And dopamine is a precursor to your norepinephrine, which maintains your blood pressure. So you see all of these things. But when you're younger, your enzymes work better, right? So when before you're 30 years old, HCG will work for you. All of these things will work for you because your enzymes are still working, right? But as you get older, everything gets older. So
the car breaks down.
that's why when I teach this stuff, I say, and these things this communication system is an analog system. It's done, because neurotransmitters are neurohormones, right? So you cannot coax, you cannot yell at grandma and say, do this now. You have to coax grandma to do it. So, and that's the same technique that you do to the brain, right? You have to basically coax out the performance by saying, okay, we're going to do the balancing first of your excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters. Sometimes that is enough because the neuromodulators are probably at the right levels, right? Nice. And then you can think of giving dopamine. So the thing is, there are many ways of doing this, as you said, Justin. It's like with hormones, right? Let's take a look at hormones. Let's give an example: the thyroid hormone. First there's the thyroid hormone releasing hormone, right? Which comes from your hypothalamus. And then there is the thyroid stimulating hormone, which comes from your pineal gland. And then you can give the thyroid hormones themselves, which come from your thyroid. So you have 3 levels by which you could actually do this. But the thing is, you should know, when those are effective and when those aren't. When you're younger, probably a releasing hormone is a lot better. That's why, for example, for this growth hormone releasing hormone, peptides, et cetera, that will work really for a lot of younger people, right? But when you're older, even the end organ, like your thyroid or your testicles, actually, they're tired. Right. So unless you rejuvenate them, there's a whole new field of senolytics and so on. You can anti-age them. Then you will have to provide the end hormone itself. So you have several. What I've done here when I teach this is like you have several options really. Before, if you were coming to me and you're 30 years old, I'm not going to give you testosterone. I'm probably going to give you something that will stimulate your luteinizing hormone and your follicle stimulating hormone instead, right?
Well,
as you get older,
like inclomifene or HCG.
Yes, yeah. Have you taken clomiphene?
Yes.
God, that turns me extremely bitchy.
I've taken inclomifene. I haven't taken Clomid. I took inclomifene. I'll tell you what, I didn't really notice a difference. I didn't feel like I had more. Yeah.
No, for me, it's like I don't notice the testosterone difference, but I see it in the levels, right? But for me, it's more behavioral. It's like it's like the bitchiest days of my life have been me on Clomid. So, because I'm known to test everything on myself. Everything that I give, I tested it myself, and I famously said, except for estrogen, because. Because that I know when my estrogen levels are high, I begin crying on Hallmark ads on the TV. Oh shit!
Beautiful,
my estrogen levels is
beautiful Hallmark ads. I love those things. I have a question about hormones, and then kind of it goes back to amphetamines, right? So I was talking to one of my buddies. He's a doctor. He's not practicing, but he's a DO. And we were talking, we were just eating lunch, and one of my good friends, and he takes Adderall. He takes a little bit in the morning and then a little bit right after lunch. Like I guess you could say most people in America do, if you didn't know that. most people, I would say 70% of people that work are on some form of prescription amphetamines. It's pretty crazy nowadays, especially the college kids in America. I don't know how it is outside of America, but I was talking to him, and he has lower testosterone, but he uses Adderall to boost his productivity. And we were getting talking, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to shut myself down, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, to me, it makes sense, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're taking TRT and you have a high level of testosterone, you're kind of getting the same benefits that people that take amphetamines would from like a productivity, energy, focus, dominating like driver, like like an entrepreneur was trying to become a billionaire, like grind mode. And then he was like, yeah, maybe if I got on TRT, I could stop taking Adderall. So what is your take on people that, get to that super physiological range of 1,000 plus?
Justin, I don't push people to the super physiological ranges because they're not hypogonadic, right? I would push you to the level to between you 21 and 30 years old, but I will not do any more.
Wait, so you can't get me to 1,000 every day?
I have 60-year-old clients whose testosterone levels are 1,000 or 1,200. Yes.
Not naturally, though. Not naturally.
No, these are on hormone balancing.
Okay.
These are hormone. These are hormone balancing. That's why I said, Justin, and I know that people don't like to hear this, is that in order to get into a healthy brain state that will perform, your entire body must be healthy. You have to supply everything that's the body needs, because you can think of health optimization medicine as we are the doctors who take care of your basic cell, the one that takes care of your nucleus, your mitochondria, your cytoplasm, your cell membrane, your endoplasmic reticulum, because no one takes care of that. Right? Someone will take care of your insulin cells, your beta cells of the pancreas. Someone will take care of your cardiomyocytes. Someone will take care of your muscle cells, and so on and so forth. But no one takes care of that fundamental cell. And I said, it's about time, because we have the technology to do it. So why don't you focus on the common denominator first? And when you look at the common denominator, you cannot just isolate it by organ anymore, because it's the common denominator for all the organs in your body. They're made up of cells. So take care of the fundamental cell, and then you could see that your body starts taking care of you. Then after that, think of overclocking things, right? As I said, we began to talk about God mode, and I'm returning to that, right?
Yeah.
When you, for example, when your hormones are balanced, you may not even need to do God mode, but if you have a God mode complex, you can do so, right?
Always, so make sure we always want God mode.
You make sure that your dopamine and serotonin levels are balanced. I said this is after optimization. You don't push one to counterbalance another. In fact, my definition of health is very simple, right? It's A plus B plus C. A is the absence of disease, plus B, the balance of anabolic and catabolic processes in the body, according to C, the cycle of life of the organism. It's a very simple definition, right? When you're younger, you're more prone to anabolism. When you're older, you're more prone to catabolism. And what I simply do is I maintain you in that balance for as long as it maintains the quality of your life. In other words, I'm after the quality of your life. I'm not after the quantity. The quantity is a beneficial side effect, because I don't know whether that you're going to step in front of a bus tomorrow morning, but at least I'm sure that if that happened, you had a very high quality life before that.
Watch out for buses. Watch out for buses.
Yeah.
I hurt my back. I hurt my back, and I was like bent over, and I was like, man, if this is what it feels like to live at 90, I don't want to be alive.
Yes. In fact, Damasio, who is a neurologist, said, I borrow his definition of a high quality life. He said, the high quality life begins with a life without pain. And by that, he means physical pain, right?
Yes.
He means physical pain. But I've added to that physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, and all other things you might want to throw in there.
Every type of pain.
That's a high quality life. In fact, there's a story, right, of about, you can ask for for immortality, but you can get sicker and sicker and sicker. So when you ask for immortality, don't forget to ask for eternal youth. We are at Health Optimization, the eternal youth guys. So, we provide the quality, illness medicine can provide the quantity for us as much as they want, but we are focused on the quality of your life. And I said they comprise the two parts of the spectrum right there. And so you were saying earlier, what do I think about testosterone and so on? You must remember that, when the brain functions differently on high testosterone and high estrogen levels, right? If you could see women who have naturally higher estrogen levels, they are more verbally fluent, right? They're more verbally fluent. They have a different way of looking at things, reasoning out, and so on. And if you see a man with high testosterone is very, I'd like to fight with you right now. Thank you. Right? It's confident. In fact, that's what I do with my clients. It's like, I push their testosterone levels to as much as between 21 and 30. But if you cannot handle it because you're highly aggressive, look, I've had patients who have, where I've received phone calls from the airline saying that, your patient's about to rip a first class seat off the plane.
Oh my gosh.
Because you cannot handle those kinds of high hormone levels, then I would actually just try to approximate for as much as you can handle, right? So just to a level of confidence, not to a level of hunger. So when you're looking at that, so what you really need in order to have an optimized brain is you need, enough estrogen and enough testosterone to do so.
Yes.
You have persuasive verbal skills, but at the same time, you have all of these thinking skills that are usually attributed to males, like, for example, a manipulation of 3D objects in space, right? And that's the reason why the Fields medals, have usually, as you see now, they've usually been awarded to males, and they're usually within circa of 20 years old, right? Those Fields medals in mathematics, because they can actually close their eyes and move things in space. Look, I'm an interventional neuroradiologist, and I can close my eyes, and as the dye is moving through your brain, I can picture in 3D where the dye is moving, right? So and so these are the things that are qualitatively different for both hormones. So there's really no one hormone that you want to predominate, right? When it comes to your brain, the brain will do what it needs to do in order to accomplish what you need to accomplish. So if you are working on something with that requires a lot of verbal skill, etc., a lot of those testosterone that you have would be converted to estrogen in order to accommodate the task. Right. So
I don't know. It sounds like we need to jump on testosterone. It sounds pretty good to me. Let's go.
So no, as I said, balance everything, right?
Right.
I said I don't never do hormones singly. That was the mistake that we made.
Yeah.
That was a mistake that we made earlier on, right? Especially with women. That's the reason for all of these cancers and so on, because estrogen has to be balanced with progesterone. All of them have their balancing agents. So if you're coming to me and you don't want to work with the network, the network that I propose, then you need to go to another one, because I won't do that, because I know that it's gonna be a disservice to you.
Everything works together for sure. So tell me what you think about this, right? And staying on testosterone. I know a guy that he has natural levels, 1700, natural.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With blood work to prove it, everything. This guy's a multimillionaire. He's like 30 something. Yeah, early 30s though. But he's always had high tests. 1700 is crazy. That's bodybuilder range, super physiological range, but it's natural. Mm-hmm. The guy's a multimillionaire. He never gets tired. He's relentless. He has super high amount of confidence. He doesn't stop. He gets a lot of women because if he gets turned down, he just keeps going. Plus he's super rich, so it helps. And he's jacked, so that also helps. So this is like the pure, like, Prometheus alpha male, right? Now, I'm not saying it has everything to do with his hormone levels, but if you were to take 1700 and put it into any guy, they would at least show some types of symptoms of being like an alpha dominator. So
you're
what's your
now
take on
talking
that?
about you're now talking about hormone personalities, right? There and you will love this, Justin. When I was learning about hormone balancing in Paris, it's like you have the you have the estrogen bitch, highly sexy, very nice skin. It's just this slight plumpness to them because estrogen does that to you. They're very sexy, they're very catty, and they will bite you behind your back. These are estrogen bitches, right? And these are estrogen personalities, right? And
Yep.
then there's what's called the progesterone prune, right? And they are highly wrinkled women, with no estrogen, and you could usually find them in the convent. The aging nuns, for example, they are examples of progesterone prunes, right?
Looks like
And
they smoke
so
30 cartons of cigarettes a day.
So you can see that they're actually sort of like stereotypical characterizations of the of hormone predominance, right? Not that I'm saying that
Right.
one would fall into the other, but usually, as I said, hormones are we don't realize it, but they form a huge part of our behavior.
Yes.
Right, they form a huge part of our behavior. So you're talking about testosterone dominant male. They usually get their way by brute force. And as you know, although they are classified to be highly mathematically and geometrically intelligent, they are not usually known for their speaking or literary skills. So you could see, and that's where I think, where they are misclassified as the dumb muscle jock. And it's because they cannot, it's part of the fact that the estrogen, the testosterone is predominant. That's why the verbal skills are not that fluent. But if you balance that, you allow the estrogens in their brains to actually to rise, you'll see that there's a change. And that's why you see this muscle men in their early years, right? And then they turn 50 or 60, they become a little bit more gentle, they become a little bit more balanced in their reasoning, and so on and so forth. That's why I said always be careful when you're giving advice. What is the age range of the person that you're really talking to, right? But you're talking about here is the hormone stereotypes, that behavioral stereotypes, right? That are present, and they're taught, they're taught to us, and you see them. You see them. The moment a patient comes into your clinic, you see me. Oh, okay. I know this picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's like, for example, your testosterone male. They come in, and it's really very interesting, Justin, that the ones that come in who are older, right, who have naturally high testosterone levels when they're young. It's an advantage because they come in with very well preserved muscle mass. Like I now have a 70-year-old, he came to me at 60, at 60, his testosterone levels was already 1200.
Jeez.
Right. So it means that, that has been sustained throughout his life. Of course, he's been through 5 wives and so on and so forth. But
makes a difference.
So you could see where the stereotype lies, right? In these kinds of things. But as I said, this can be modulated. These are modulated over time. But you can also modulate it by doing the balancing early on to address these kinds of imbalances, right?
Yeah.
And tying this back now to the way people think, right? And to the way people think, etc. Hormones this is like the backdrop by which your neurotransmitters are functioning, right? So there is a baseline of the hormone functioning in the brain, and then on top of that are neurotransmitters that do their thing, right?
Right.
For example, those who have higher hormone levels have a higher conversion of their dopamine to norepinephrine, right? And therefore, when you look at them and check their medical histories, they're more prone to high blood pressure and all of that kind of stuff. So you see that it has but to your point where this is genetically driven, Look, there were two winners of the yellow jersey, 1928 and 29, I think. You can look it up, but these were brothers. These are brothers who won the Tour de France, and when they examined their genes, they were producing extra EPO. Right, so that's what it reminded your statement of your someone you knew who is actually this alpha male with high testosterone. Like, yeah, look, they won it, and genetically they were overproducing EPO. So what do you do with that, right? In fact, there's a reason why when I was asked, so how would you deal with the Olympics then? Right? Well, let them do what they need to do. There's no such thing as a natural thing in there, because the natural thing was some of these people will have their, what? Are you going to do genetic testing now and disqualify those who are overexpressing certain genes? So it's these are slippery slopes, right? That we have to navigate, not only scientifically, but ethically, when we come to these sorts of problems. And then now, when it comes to all of these newer according to Aubrey de Grey, who is a biogerontologist, right? He's the one who basically popularized senolytics and removing these old cells in our body and so on and so forth, right? And so they're not banned. So we are going to start banning them also. So where is it? And I've been working. Some of my work has brought me to working with some people who are lawmakers, right? And when I told them that they were about to ban the pro hormones, which they themselves were taking, they started to have a second look at these things. Right. And I said, hey, you're going to ban this, then you need to have this prescribed to you and, and all that stuff. I said, look at the hassle, right? This is used for this is used for regular health purposes. Right. In fact, many of this will raise your testosterone at a younger age, like DHEA, all of this will raise your testosterone at a younger age without having to take any hormones itself. As I said, you can stimulate the releasing hormone, the stimulating hormone. And in fact, for growth hormone, the growth hormone itself will stimulate the liver to produce insulin growth factors. And we only measure insulin growth factor 1, but they have 1, 2, 3, right? And it's that we actually, you can actually give insulin-like growth factor, right? So when I look at this, it's good, for your listeners actually to think of this in their heads. Is in the definition of health, there's anabolics and catabolics, right? And so when you look at hormones, testosterone is an anabolic and will use a lot of your energy at the expense of your immune system. All right. So as I said, the Department of Defense has the biggest budget, and your body, the Department of Defense has the biggest budget. So you notice that the bodybuilders who are actually taking testosterone at superphysiologic doses, they tend to get sick very quickly. And that's because the energy that's supposed to be used for defense is being diverted into the anabolic process. So you see, for example, what I tell my students is that when you see these beautiful bodybuilders on stage come September, October, when the competitions happen, they're at their weakest, right? They're their weakest. Their immune system is totally depressed, right? They don't have hydrocortisone to deal with stress because they don't like it, right? And so you push them and they will fall on stage. Is generally what happens, right? Those people on stage are actually at their weakest when you're looking at. So it's a trade-off because you're actually pushing the anabolic process more than the catabolic process. But what what people need to know is that these anabolic and catabolic processes are not only seasonal; they occur within a day in the body. Like, for example, when you are hungry, your body is in actual catabolic state, right? So it will start, now here we come to the practical advice that they give you in biohacking, right? It's like, I started time-restricted feeding, or what I say, they call calorie restricted feeding, right? And for me, it's time restricted feeding 15 years ago, when it was not known as time restricted feeding. I called it narrowing your feeding window, right? Because fasting window sounds very depriving. So I said, okay, feeding window. And most of my patients and most of your listeners can do this. I say, well, we're basically such a spoiled species because we have 16 hours. We allow ourselves 16 hours to eat, right? So why don't you allow yourself just 12 hours to eat? And then if you can do so, 10 hours and then 8 hours to eat. My reasoning, 15 years ago was that, that your mitochondria, your power cells in your body are their bacteria, right? And they are self-cleaning kitchens, right? If you give them too much food to process all the time, you will have a dirty kitchen, right? But if you allow them time to clean themselves, then they will regenerate and you will have more kitchens to process your food. And therefore you will have more energy. And so, most of my clients and patients, they say, "Oh, Dr. Ted, I cannot possibly follow your dietary requirements, but I can give you your time requirements." So for me, it's like, okay, gotcha. Okay, you can promise me your time requirements. Even that simple change in your feeding window can do a lot of wonders for your sleep, for your energy, and so on. So we don't have to look far actually to get into God mode. We just have to do. The more difficult things are minor changes in your lifestyle that have the butterfly effect, right? That have a butterfly effect, like walking 8,000 steps a day. They said it's not even 10,000 now. It's just like 8,000. And come on, it's minus 2,000. Just do it, right? These are the minor things that have a butterfly effect and then after that, when you've done all of that, then you consider now overclocking the neurotransmitters in your brain. As I said, the balance is between your excitatory, inhibitory, your dopamine and serotonin. You have to balance also your opiate receptors, right? Your opiate hormones, because they give you a sense of euphoria. That's why endogenous opiates give you the runner's high, right?
Yes.
And then you also have to take care of your cannabinoid system, because where there are receptors in your body, there have a purpose, right? So you have to find out what those receptors are.
Well, we can agree that testosterone definitely works, right? So if you don't do TRT and you don't start actually just taking synthetic exogenous testosterone, what would you say for people that want to increase their natural levels, quote unquote, but not take actual testosterone injections? What would you recommend?
They wouldn't like my answer. The first,
don't say vitamins.
No. The first, that when you eat a scoop of ice cream, it's going to depress your testosterone levels for about 24 hours. So we know little lifestyle changes like this. As I said, you won't like my answers.
Is that because of the sugar? Is that just sugar?
Yes, you need to be able to fix your sleep, right? When you're able to regularize your sleep and so on, you would see that when you're sleeping regularly and you're sleeping on time, and just make a commitment, even if you just lie down in bed and say, I'm going to sleep at this time, and don't expect to fall to sleep instantly. There's a latency period by which you fall asleep, anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes maybe before you actually fall asleep. But the thing is, we're so instant. I want to have the ambient-like effect. You can't do that. Right?
Yeah.
Your body is as a cycle.
It's so much work, man. Let's be honest. Like most people that can afford it, they're just like, listen, I got to focus on not eating this. I can't be too hot because my testicles will overheat. I got to get the right amount of sleep. You got to eat all these things. Or I could just inject twice a week and we're good to go. And they never drop.
Well, that's the thing, is that I never do that, right? Because as I said, testosterone always has to be seen in the context of the network that it's in. It's, testosterone is just one of the anabolic hormones in your body. There's growth hormone that's also anabolic, right? And then there's, and then you have insulin, which is also anabolic. Those belong to the anabolic camp, and you have the catabolic camp, which is, your thyroid hormones, your hydrocortisone, of course, from your adrenals, your melatonin. which actually takes away a lot of debris when it's surging. Your brain, the lymphatic system clears away a lot of the debris from your brain. So you need to have a balance of these hormones. When you overclock one, you'll basically just upset the whole, right?
Mm.
And yeah, you may be swole, right? And you may have this swagger about you, etc. But you are not healthy. So for me, you have to prioritize your health over how you look, right? You have to prioritize your health over how you look, because
what if you do
once
it the
you're
right way,
healthy,
what if you do
you
it
will
the
have a
right
healthy
way?
glow, right?
Right. But what if you do it the right way? You get everything is monitored, but you're still getting close to super physiological. Would that be optimal, because you don't have to think about every single thing?
You see, I do that all the time. You can overclock hormones or nutrients to supraphysiological levels, right? But only for short periods of time, because before you overclock things to supraphysiological levels, make sure that you know what deficiencies you're gonna incur, right? So that's why I tell them to be hormonally and nutritionally balanced first, and then we overclock something, because when you overclock something, you already know what deficiencies you're going to get to incur, right? For example, if you are going to overclock the serotonin levels, you know that you're going to get a vitamin B6 deficiency, right? So these are known, except that illness medicine doctors do not think this way. I know, I used to be one. It took me 3 years to actually turn my head around and reason from the more fundamental stuff, like what does the body do actually to keep itself healthy and balanced. If you proceed from that fundamental question, then you could go on and answer your questions like, would pushing this superphysiologically make me better? Yes, but for short periods of time. Make sure, like for example, if that's why I said getting you addicted to the feeling of wellness. So when you get off kilter, you know how to bounce right back. For example, it's legal. For example, in Europe, I used to consult there. It's actually legal, for example, before a run, right, to raise the hydrocortisone levels of the runners, right? There is no rule that prevents you from raising the hydrocortisone levels of the runners, because that is a supraphysiologic stress and has to be met with a supraphysiologic levels of hydrocortisone. So you know very well what they're going to do and how they're going to overclock it. But you know very well also that you will be hoarding in a lot of sodium. We'll be losing in a lot of potassium. Right. All of those mineral deficiencies that you're going to incur from doing that. Same thing with testosterone. Same thing for women. When you do an estrogen progesterone combo, you know what deficiencies this will incur. For example, I have patients of OBGYNs who come to me severely depressed. Right, 3 days after they start taking the pill, right? For whatever reason, they take a pill to regularize their menses and so on. And they come to me like the OBGYNs called me up and they said, why is my patient suddenly depressed? Because and you see very clearly that of course estrogens will sequester your vitamin B6, right? And with that sequestration, there is in order to make serotonin, you need vitamin B6. So I'm just using this as examples,
no, for
right?
sure.
That these are little things that we already know that before you overclock something,
right?
It's possible to do so, but make sure that you're already balanced before that. In fact, the reason why, when you go, for example, for HBOT therapy, which is popular these days, right? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, that is actually basically overclocking oxidation in your body, right? You are rusting the system intentionally or deliberately. So before you rust the system, make sure that the patient or the client has appropriate antioxidant levels, right? There is the antioxidant regeneration pathway that you should know about. You should know what the levels are. And you shouldn't put a patient or a client on HBOT with a highly deficient antioxidant regeneration system, Right.
Yeah.
So these are the things that you test beforehand before you shove yourself into these kinds of things. That's why
A lot of
because
doctors just refer and keep it going. There's
yes,
not enough
yes,
time.
yes.
Not enough time.
But but what I'm saying is that if you want to do it properly,
Right.
this
If you
is
want to do it
how
properly,
you want to do it.
this is the way
So
that you
if you
want
want
to
to
approach it. Yeah.
overclock something, make sure you're balanced first. Overclock it, and overclock it only for short periods of time. Look, even for bodybuilders, right? You can't take something for longer than 6 to 8 weeks, right? After
Right.
that, you stop.
Right. Of course. Yeah, you cycle up. I have a
And let
question
the
about.
body recover.
I have a question about testosterone in general. Talked a lot about testosterone. I have a buddy
You're in a
that
testosterone mood this morning.
I know I'm ready. I'm ready to conquer the world. So one of my buddies, he has low testosterone. He has poor eating habits. He eats pizza. Like he literally only eats like pizza, cheeseburgers, and steak. He's been like that since a kid. He has low energy, low confidence, no muscle mass. Getting him to go to the gym is like you know, it's pointless, right? So because he just doesn't love it. He feels like he's doing it just to put on muscle, but he's not into working out, so he ends up quitting every time. He's not eating the right nutrition. Like he's not going to do it. I just know some people that are just not going to do it. He's one of the guys that's just not going to do it. So I told him, I said, hey man, you should go get another blood test to check your levels, and I'll almost guarantee that you still have low T, low total and low free. That maybe you should get on testosterone replacement therapy, because I know you're not going to go through he's not going to change his lifestyle. He's a typical like American when it comes to that. He's not going to change. So I was like, well, listen, at the end of the day, you're going to keep feeling like shit forever, or you can maybe take some exogenous hormones and then your life will be better, and then maybe you'll change your eating habits, but at least you'll feel better just by taking exogenous, because you're not giving your body the right fuel, right? Now, obviously, that's not the right way, but when you're dealing with humans, you have to understand their daily habits.
That's sort of like the body of my experience. It's like when you're dealing with humans, it's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
But again, Justin, how old is the?
He just turned 30, and he's never taken steroids or anything. But I told him this, and his biggest concerns were. He already is like losing his hair, so it's not that big of a deal. His hairline's like all the way back in his head, so he doesn't care about hair as much anymore. But his biggest concern was he knows guys that have done steroids and now they can't have kids. So he's scared that if he gets on TRT, that he won't be able to have kids when he's married.
That's a problem with single hormone replacement, right? And that's why I am actually opposed to just TRT. So that's a single hormone replacement. You want actually a total hormone balancing, or a complete hormone balancing. When you are in these kinds of things, I never recommend single hormone balancing. You will get into all of these issues. For all the reason for the fact that he actually has low energy is that he has low growth hormone levels. Look, I have worked with, much as I don't like to do so, my youngest patients are, I'm usually very strict at 30 years old, but I have patients who started at 18 because the parents said, can you look at my son, and their growth hormone levels, for example, are like a 70-year-old. And even just boosting the growth hormone levels subsequently boosted their testosterone levels. So you don't know what the body is going to do, right? So when you start working on the entire network, you start essentially. It's actually funny because here in the United States, we start slowly, right? We start very slowly. In Europe, it's the opposite. So in here in the United States, we push the hormone levels to when you were 30. But in Paris, we push your hormone levels to when you were 25. Yeah. And we start with the higher doses first, and then we titrate it downwards. Here in the United States, we start with your lower doses and titrate it upwards. So that's the difference in technique and a lot of fear about these things, right? Mm. I'm more of the Parisian version because I trained there, and because when you give those amounts that you have to reduce, the patient feels it like immediately, like, oh way, 2 days later you're sleeping like a baby, right? But that's the thing. If I were to advise your friend, is that take a baseline complete hormone panel rather than just testosterone itself, and take a look at whether or not the result of his weakness and all of these other things are just from the hormones itself. And as I said, based on his age, there are a lot of other therapies that can be used, other than the end hormone itself, right? Because his organs are still producing the right amount of hormones. They just need to have the proper signal to do it, right? And part of the proper signals, of course, are the proper cofactors in the pathways. Some may need zinc, some may need magnesium, some may need, the various vitamins. And as I said, the pathways of the enzymes need all of these things. That's why I said we cannot really complete your hormone balancing without knowing what your nutritional status is, right? Because you may be giving all of those hormones, but they are ineffective because they cannot do their job, right? Because you lack the cofactors to actually make it work.
What if you take like a multivitamin, like a high potency, like a very good quality multivitamin every day? Like I take Thorns AM PM, and I'm getting all my zinc, everything. I take it with fat. I take it with giant scoops of coconut oil in the morning. So I'm taking it with fat because I'm a psycho.
Well,
so
my advice to that is that you must know, Justin, there's also such a thing called AIS, or antioxidant induced stress. Your cells can go into a stressed out mode because you're taking too much of this stuff. So, we have the technology now. We can measure, get these things measured, right? If you can afford it, get your things measured. But my advice for those who can't afford it is don't start with putting yourself on multivitamins, etc. Start with minor changes in lifestyle. I know it's difficult, but these minor changes actually yield, 60 to 80% of my results are due to lifestyle changes. But I have your metabolomic profile to prove it. So when you started, sleeping this way, here's how your metabolite levels change. Absolutely. Right? We're not even talking about your diet. We're not talking about anything. We're just talking about simple switches that you can flip that have they're bifurcation points that can have a huge effect on your health. And I said, I'm the person who actually loves to overclock things. But before you overclock, make sure you're healthy. Otherwise, you push yourself to more unhealthiness. Like a friend, for example, he's 30, and if you don't take the complete hormone panel, you may never see, what his DHT levels might be like, what his estrogen levels might be like, where you could block certain things, or maybe, he's basically already experiencing an adrenal burnout, right? He's probably not producing enough stress hormones anymore because it's such a stressful life. So, a lot of these things can come into play. So you have to take a look at the anabolic and catabolic hormones together and say, okay, what's the big picture here? And after you've balanced the big picture, okay, what do I want to overclock here? Do I want to get cocky now? Do I want to do this? And when you do that, make sure you only do it for short periods of time, right? You don't do it for prolonged periods of time because you will suffer the consequences. And the point of view, I think that people should take about this is more evolutionary, right? The vitamins, minerals, cofactors, and these hormones have been seen by the body in evolution, right? And knows what to do with it. Nandrolone, trenbolone, and all of this, and oxandrolone, it hasn't seen this in evolution.
That's the crazy stuff. Yeah.
Right. So you take a look at it from an evolutionary point of view. In fact, there's a question to me when I was starting this 15 years ago. Doctors would call me up. He's like, "Hey, how's your vitamin, mineral, and cofactor balancing going to affect my drug treatment?" And I go, "Oh, well, you have this the other way around, right? Your drugs have never been seen by the body in evolution, but the body has always been using all of these things, to make itself healthy, to balance itself, to protect itself. So you tell me how your drugs are going to affect the levels of my hormones, nutrients, and cofactors, right? Initially, I was met with like anger, right? But now you realize, you got to take care of those first. I know it's not sexy. right? It's sexy to take care of the basic stuff, but this is just like having a house, right? Where you don't take care of the roof and the posts and the walls. You're really taking a look at, how you're going to furnish the space without actually making sure that the house is actually sufficient to house you and protect you from the elements and so on, to be able to live comfortably. And I think you should be treating your body the same way. Right?
What about the kids? What about the kids aspect though? If you take testosterone, should you be worried that eventually you won't be able to have kids when you're married?
No, that depends on that really that's a multifactorial question.
Got it.
Because there are men who would have, like, for example, depressed sperm counts for whatever reason, and their testosterone levels are within optimal limits.
Gotcha.
Right? Within optimal ranges. So these are also like how much spermatogenesis is done by the luteinizing hormone, and it comes from the brain, right? Is your brain producing enough luteinizing hormone? Normally, the brain can produce normal amounts of luteinizing hormone in one study until the age of 94, because it's the oldest that they tested, right? But the testicles are not responding, right, when you're already 94. So you could see this is a multifactorial question that really FSH, they affect the Sertoli cells, which are of course support the testosterone producing cells, the Leydig cells of the testicles, right? So you could see that these two hormones that come from the brain are the ones responsible for actually inducing your testicles to give you testosterone. So you should know, what those are doing before you actually say, like, for example, you see in andropause, Justin, you see that FSH and LH levels in the brain actually go up, right? And because the brain is by negative feedback, so it's not seeing any testosterone, it goes, give me more, so it will rise. So it's screaming more, but the testicles aren't being able to produce it. But your friend is not there yet, right? It's not there yet. So we should be able to see what those levels look like, and then say, well, okay, we could actually raise your testosterone by giving you stinging nettle root. Just, you have actually good testosterone levels. They're just, your free testosterone levels are actually low, right? We can unbind your testosterone from SHBG. Sometimes it's all you need, right? Or you just need a short course of clomiphene or enclomiphene, right? For testosterone. So because your enzymes are still able to work their magic, you're still at a young age. So I encourage your listeners to be mindful what their age is, right? When they're looking at these pieces of advice. As I said, I am very age sensitive, not because I'm old, but it's because you can do damage,
for sure,
to a young person.
How would you raise your free test? How would you raise your free? What root did you say?
Stinging nettle root.
What is
it? Urtica dioica. Stinging nettle root.
How do you spell that for the listeners?
URTICA. Okay. And DIOICA.
Okay, and that will increase your free.
That will unbind your bound testosterone from the sex hormone binding globulin, and that will raise your. In fact, I'm actually formulating troche that will do that, but using the crystal of the active ingredient of stinging nettle root. This is known in the bodybuilding world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Where they have sufficient or high amounts of total testosterone, but their free testosterone is low, and you can unbind. And of course, when you have low free testosterone, it's not doing its work, right?
Exactly.
And that can be affected by so many factors too. For example, if you're taking way too much protein, because in the advisor is protein, taking way too much protein, it could affect your albumin levels, it could affect your sex hormone binding globulin levels, and so on. And they will, of course, bind more of this stuff, right? So those things have to be checked. you probably have guessed by now that I have consulted with bodybuilders as well as athletes. But these are the things that I check. I just don't check their testosterone levels, right?
Right, for sure.
You give them a window by which to jack up all of these things, like especially during the summertime when they're building, right? But know when you have to lift your foot off the gas pedal and say, okay, we need to start titrating down now.
Gotcha.
And then you let them lie fallow in the winter. In fact, I like the bodybuilder cycle. I do like their cycle because they lie fallow in the winter. They allow their body fat to recover, but with the instant on Instagram, you have to look great, all seasons of the year. That's fucked up, right?
That's true.
But in normal competition, you lie fallow in the wintertime. And that's when I actually advise them to do their aerobic work, right? To do the aerobic work, they regain their fat, they pull away from depression because their body fat levels actually rise again, right? And you go through that through the entire season, and then the spring you begin your gently breaking into your spring training. Summer is you have your full training session, and then fall is when you show off, right? And most commercial shots of beautiful bodies are done during the fall, as you know, and most competitions are held during the fall because it's the cycle that we follow.
Good cycle for sure.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk to you about is learning and being able to actually digest information the best way, right? Supplements, and then also like daily practices. So if you want to learn, not a motor skill, like you don't want to learn boxing or learn how to rollerblade or whatever, right? If you want to learn a different language, or you want to be able to remember and digest more information, maybe even get to the part where you're better at critical thinking, what supplements would you recommend that people take? And then what daily practices would you recommend?
Okay, let's go first to the root of expertise, right? My definition of expertise is really very simple. Mm-hmm. It's the relaxed control of your material. If you're a writer, you have a relaxed control of your words. If you're a sculptor, you have a relaxed control of your material for sculpting. If you're an athlete, you have a relaxed control of your body for body movements for the sport that you're involved in, right? And achieving that relaxed control starts with you knowing how to relax your body and mind. And for me, that's where it all starts. I would, all the athletes that have worked with me and all the coaches that I've screamed at, actually, I have told them, for the athletes, for the people, ordinary people who go to work, right, to have meditative practice, to have a practice of meditation, even just 10 or 20 minutes a day, to learn how to calm their minds and learn how to observe their habits of thought. Habitual thinking is bad for you, right? It's because they turn reflexive. It's like you have automatic negative responses to things right away. But being able to observe those, even just for like 10 minutes a day, right? Or 20 minutes a day even, would be a good way to learn how to relax your mind and relax your body, right? And you also learn how to breathe. You learn a lot of these things that have nothing to do with spirituality if you don't want to put spirituality in there, right? It's just being able to know that you have a relaxed, first you have to have a relaxed control of your body and mind emotions. And that's where expertise comes from, right? Then you begin to take a look at, okay, what are the learning strategies that you need to employ? Because there are different learning strategies for different things that you want to master. If it's something physical, then you need to have a different set of learning strategies. Like, do you need a teacher, right? Can you teach yourself? Obviously, if you're into martial arts, you need to, you need to get thrown in the mat and you need to get beaten down because that's part of the training process, right? But being able to relax into what's being taught to you is what makes you an expert in something, right? When I was a new physician, I was just following everything else. It's like, okay, I should give this for this, there's an algorithm for everything. And then you begin to have a relaxed control of the material, and you begin to reason from the fundamentals of what you've learned. And that's how you begin to to be able to take a look at what resources do I need in order to master this. That's the second question, right? Is what resources do I need to master this, and do I learn by this method? Because there are people who won't learn by reading books, right? They watch videos, they listen to lectures, and doctors are notorious for not wanting to read anything. They just want to be lectured on something, or they just want a quick conversation of what it is that that they're asking for. So that's the second thing is, and then you need to allot time for you to be able to see which resources work for you and which don't. And then the third, I would say, if you would like to master something, is take a look at the general outline of what it is that you'd like to master, right? Because you just don't begin with the first step. It's true that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, but before that first step, is ever taken, the journey of 1,000 miles is only the last 5%. 95% is preparing you, for that journey. And one of those things that you do is you take a look at what is this really the subject matter that I am looking to study and looking to master. And right. The advice that I usually give as a visual for this is, when you're reading a book, right? Don't go plunge in the book right away. Right? Read the preface of the book and see what the author's intent is, how the author thinks, right? And that's why I like I like reading books more than I like talking to people, because their thoughts are more well organized. And then take a look. My biggest advice is take a look at your table of contents, right? Exactly how is the materials organized. So if you want to master anything, if you want to learn anything, take a look at how that field that you like to master, or even simple and complex, for me, very complex act of baking something in the kitchen, right? That's for me, that's within the purview now of like molecular gastronomy. There's a lot of chemistry behind that, etc. So what exactly are the fundamentals that you need to know before you can even start cooking, right? You have, say, great ideas of becoming a great chef and this and that and so on and so forth. But you got to learn how to cook. And before you learn how to cook, you got to learn the fundamentals of cooking. And then now, which is what tying it back to health optimization, Justin, we now know in cooking, it's advanced technologically. As I said, you now can proceed via molecular gastronomy to know what the best techniques are for what you're cooking. It's the same thing with health optimization. You know that you can now take a look inside the cell and take a look at your metabolites to know what it is that you're trying to balance. It's the same kind of thing. So for anything that you'd like to learn, take stock of yourself first. Do you know how to exert relaxed control over yourself first? And because of that, you can learn how to get relaxed control over your material. Relaxed control over your material means knowing the lay of the land of what it is that you like to master. Look, for me, I'm a short guy. I know I'll never be a basketball player. I could never be that. I could never be a tennis player. There are limitations of my physique that will not allow me to be such. So be realistic for what you like to master. If it's just for your fun and recreation, then that's great. But if you're going to look to be a superstar of something where it will never happen, then I suggest that you spare yourself the suffering and look for something that you could actually master, where you can excel in. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But the first thing in there, I think, is self-mastery. Right. And then after that, you can do the mastery of other things that you'd like.
That's amazing.
And the self-mastery for me, as I said, is very simple. You just need to learn how to relax. So,
just relax. That's all.
Relax.
That's all it comes down to. Just relax and then let it.
Take a few cannabinoids, man, and just chill a little.
Just chill. Yeah, that's hard. Like when you're a super alpha driven person, you want to master everything and want to be the best, and you're super competitive. It's hard to relax. But that's the only way to actually move forward.
Well, for a man with high testosterone, that's the only way to move forward. But
Yes.
there's also, that's a very highly sympathetic response. There's also a parasympathetic aspect to it where you could change aspects of the environment, right? In order so that you don't have to push as hard as a person in order to get to what you want. You make the environment work for you, right? That's the most neglected part of mastering something, is that mastery is never taken out of the context by which it is mastered. So if you want to be the best CEO out there, there are things in your environment that you can change. Right? Aside from you doing all of this self-improvement stuff and blah, 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 they say we're focused on that. That's a highly sympathetic thing to do, right? But take a look at the parasympathetic stuff. What in your context? Like when you're studying at home, is your desk like 100% cluttered, and you cannot do any work within your desk? Even just changing a few things in your room, even just setting study hours where your phone is actually, I advise my patients this actually, where I tell them that when they're actually trying to do some work and they need to be they're under the gun, I tell them to deposit their cell phones and other distractions in a basket outside of their rooms, locked out. Right? There are now, I know that there are now like these containers that have timers in them. So they're meant for food, right? For sweets, but you can put your cell phone in them. It's like, for the next 70 minutes, I have no access to my phone. So, and those are the kinds of things that we have to do now, because we have created for us just in an environment that's highly conducive to ADHD, right? We have one stimulus, we have a hyper stimulative world. And so you have to master your environment as well as yourself. And that's what I'm saying here, is that not everything is because of you doing something, right? To improve yourself. There's also the context by which you're doing it, right?
Absolutely.
You cannot learn something when there's a pneumatic drill out in the street and you're trying to master some oration in a speech or something that you have to give to as a CEO to your company. Right. So these are the kinds of things that you think about, that there are always these two aspects that you have to balance. This you that's acting in the environment, there's an environment that's acting on you. And it's always been that way in evolution. We've never been separate from our environment.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Ted, I think you're awesome. I could talk to you for days. If people want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, they can go to the website if they're interested in becoming a practitioner on health optimization. There's homehope.org. So home is health optimization medicine. It's for physicians. Hope is for health optimization practice. It's for non-physician healthcare practitioners. We have a global program in there that's online, and for people in the United States and for countries where they take continuing medical education credits, these have very high continuing medical education credits for you. And it's a nonprofit. It's my money and some donations that are coming in that actually sponsor the site. Plus, of course, Transcriptions is the other place where you can find me. And proceeds from our part of the proceeds from Transcriptions actually goes to supporting the nonprofit. As I said, we're on a reciprocity model, and they could go to transcriptions.com. They could see a description of me there. Yep. If they are totally curious about how crazy I am and things that I've alluded to, they can just do a Google search of Dr. Ted Achacoso or Dr. Ted Achacoso podcast, and you will see my varied range of interests and insanity in there. And for those in Asia, there's a biobalanceinstitute.com. There's also a description of me in there.
All right, cool, guys. All the links will be in the show notes descriptions below, so you don't have to memorize it. But if you want to memorize it, I recommend getting the Troscription gum.
It's a turkey. The blue canatine. Blue
canatine turkey. I recommend if you're trying to memorize it. So awesome, Ted. Appreciate you jumping on the show, man. Any last words before we end this thing?
Yes. relax, guys. The world isn't ending. You're not dead yet.
Not
So
yet.
there's a lot to be grateful for, right? I know that many of you are focused on what you want to do, but the first thing, know what you value. And this is my last words for you. Please value your health, because no one else can do that for you. Value your time, because otherwise, if you don't value your time, other people will take it away from you. And value your life. Don't take unnecessary risks with your life by, flicking a bird at someone who actually cuts you off in traffic, and you don't know that that guy actually has a gun in a gun rack.
Yes.
So don't take unnecessary risk. All right. But most of all, relax. You're still alive. You're doing well. And everything else that you're doing is actually part of just fun and games.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks, Doc. This is the Justin Caviar Show, and we're out. Bye-bye, y'all.